fat. During your sleeping hours, you would burn your fat away. Thus, you would dream your fat away. And the FDA came down and fined them $1.5 million and made them stop selling this because they didn't have any clinical evidence, but they did have millions of American customers who did lose weight and didn't get side effects from this. But so it is another way to lose weight. I think there's better ways than arginine, but which is another subject for another program. But you do lose some weight with arginine. It does help you to lose weight. But the best thing you can do is to eat a more restrictive diet, a more low-calorie, high-protein diet than take the arginine.
Arginine is supposed to help your heart as well. Is that correct?
Well, any method to lose weight helps your heart. Because what typically doctors look for is the visceral fat. You look at a person's stomach, and underneath the surface fat is the visceral fat. And if you see a man or a woman with a lot of visceral fat on the stomach, then you know they have a lot of fat on their heart. And if you can reduce that visceral fat with arginine and other methods, you're also going to reduce the fat around the heart, which is choking off the arteries there and reducing heart function.
Do you remember there was a very well-known book about how too much cortisol running through your body makes you fat? Do you agree with that? Did you hear about that book some years ago?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know exactly what you mean. And again, you have to use a balanced approach. If you have too low cortisol, you die. You have, hypoadrenalism, and JF Kennedy had too low cortisol, and he was miserable for years with all sorts of back pains, black circles around his eyes. On the other extreme, you have hyperadrenalism, and that's too much cortisol. And if you show those symptoms, typically you'll have you'll be a high energy person, but you'll have a large abdomen. It's called a pendulous abdomen that kind of swings back and forth as you walk, and you have stretch marks, striae, and your stretch marks on your abdomen, and you have thin legs, Tweety bird legs. These people have too much cortisol, and they tend to be alpha people, alpha males, alpha females. And then that's too high of cortisol, and they tend to have problems with sleeping. You can't sleep right if your cortisol is elevated. It's a stress hormone. So in other words, if it's elevated, if cortisol is highly elevated, then it's the stress hormone with these characteristics, with these symptoms. If it's too low, then it's the survival hormone, which JF Kennedy his was too low.
You talk about the brain being 70% fat, and you recommend things like hydrogen. You've talked about pregnenolone with regard to feeding the brain.
Again, when it comes to the 70% fat of the brain, it all starts with your diet again. And if you choose, like a lot of Americans do, to eat cheap food, to eat junk burgers and trans fat French fries, then that's what your brain will be filled. Those kind of fats, with animal fats and trans fats, your brain will be filled with those fats. Thus the high incidence in this country of Alzheimer's. On the other hand, if you choose to fill your brain with omega-3s from fresh fish from Alaska and Canada, then you're going to have a much healthier brain in your senior years.
I'd like to talk about the thing that bothers so many people as they get older, which is age pigmentation of the skin. Sometimes on the face, on the arms, on the legs. Why do they arrive, and how do we get rid of them?
That's a free radical phenomena where you get the dark pigmenting age spots that you see. It's called lipofuscin, and it's the waste products that accumulate in cells from free radical reactions that have occurred during your lifetime. And some of your cells, especially in the heart, 1/3 of the volume of those heart cells could be filled with this age pigment. We only see the surface of some of this. We see the tip of the iceberg when we see age pigment on the faces of seniors. And again, it's a free radical phenomena. If you take antioxidants, strong antioxidants, vitamin C and E is not going to do it. You need strong antioxidants like N-acetylcysteine. You'll need that. And then if you already have this, there's There's all these face creams out there in the cosmetic world that'll help you, that'll rid yourself from the cosmetic look of this. I keep thinking of Dr. Pericone's $185 face creams, and essentially the active ingredient, for those who want to save the $185, is DMAE. If you take DMAE in creams, and cheap creams, and rub that in with where these age pigments are, they'll begin to disappear. Because the DMAE helps to break up the pigmentation, this lipofuscin pigmentation that accumulates in these cells and helps the body to eliminate that.
And what do you think of this centrophenozine?
Centrophenozine, that'll do it too. They sell that in Europe, and they sell that at antiaging-motivate.com. It's more of a European product, and that orally you can rid yourself of some of this lipofuscin that's accumulating in every cell in your body through the free radicals.
It's absolutely fascinating science. The science of anti-aging medicine it's so forward-thinking, it's actually getting ahead of the game. But for many people that just hit 50 or who are over 45, this is really a whole systems revelation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, again, you have to start with diet and exercise. None of these remedies will work very well unless you first start with diet and exercise, and you're really concerned about your health and your aging. And once you're on a proper diet and exercise, then you can start with the nutrients, like the CoQ10. You start with some hormone replacement, and you'll begin to feel better and better, and you'll begin to feel and be a younger person.
What do you say to people who say, look, I don't have 2 hours a day to walk. I have 40 minutes a day to walk.
Then you're going to be like all other Americans. In the state of Mississippi, 80% of the population is obese, is medically obese, the state of Mississippi. And if you visit Mississippi and ask the people, they think that's the normal. So most people, they think that's the normal, to be obese, to, the signs of aging have occurred dramatically on them at age 45 and above. They think that's the normal. So you have to be one of those exceptional persons that doesn't accept going slowly into a dark night, as William Faulkner used to say.
So even if people are doing proper hormone balancing and taking these antioxidants, high-level antioxidants, free radical scavengers, it's not going to be enough?
No, one remedy is not going to do that. That's what the pharmaceutical industry would like you to believe, that you have one symptom and there's only one remedy for that, and that's it. They'd like you to believe that, but it didn't used to be that way in this country back in the 50s and before, where people understood that you needed multiple remedies to solve the underlying problems. You do more than just solve the symptom at hand. You want to solve the underlying problems of aging or of whatever disease you have. It's not enough to address the symptom of it. And I've talked to, if you talk to older pharmacists in their 70s and 80s, they remember in the 40s and 50s still where they had remedies that were much better than the ones that existed today because they had 3 or 4 different ingredients that the FDA won't allow them to sell anymore. That today it's only one ingredient they'll allow for one symptom, you see. And so we've gotten away from the right way of doing things, thanks to our benevolent FDA.
How does the FDA feel about you?
No, the FDA is the FDA is essentially, it's financed and supported by the pharmaceutical industry, so they pretty much do what Big Pharma wants them to do. So that, I'm not against Big Pharma. I recommend a lot of Big Pharma products, which you've even named on the show here. I'm not against Big Pharma, but what I am against is when there's better remedies available according to the current science, the cutting-edge science, then you should use the better remedies and perhaps put Big Pharma on the back shelf for other times when you might need them in an emergency.
You say that oxygen is a double-edged sword. What do you think about hyperbaric oxygen treatments for people?
Oh yeah, well, if you have medical problems, and I think Michael Jackson did hyperbaric oxygen. If you have a real medical problem, then the high oxygen in your bloodstream helps to to alleviate some of these medical problems, and then you need it. If you have a real medical use, then you take hyperbaric oxygen, or you take hydrogen peroxide treatment. These ones that require that, or I guess like Linus Pauling. I knew him personally. I've been to his institute several times lecturing there. He recommended high dose vitamin C, but you have